Alright, and welcome to patch 14.11 of League of Legends, the game where everything changes, nothing stays the same, and anything you like will eventually be gone. My name is Chris, and joining me as always is my patch review duo partner, Jason.
2 in a row. We're putting the streak back together. Glad to be here with you, Chrissy, on 14.11, also known as the patch where I forgot to come up with a cute little zinger for it.
I was wondering what it was going to be. It's always something goofy.
I had one a couple days ago. It was great, and I forgot it.
I would call this the Lethal Tempo blowback patch if I had to give it a name. But it doesn't seem like the blowback is hit yet. Alright, first up, we got all these changes to the client. Anything interesting you see in here other than the fact that you can report people with bad names in Champ Select now?
Absolutely not. Nothing too interesting in the general changes, but I do just want to say I love that note-taking emote. I'm probably going to be spamming that one if I ever get lucky enough to pull it.
Uh-huh. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Good old...
Who is that? Is that Zoe, or is that just like a random...
Looks like a retarded
like a
version
random
of
person they made up.
Kindred if I had to give it.
Oh my god, is that Kindred? Where's the wolf?
I don't know, her hair
Is she wearing the wolf?
Hair looks so goofy, it looks like it could be Kindred. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that could be wolf. Alright, well, either way, really cute. I like that one.
Alright, next up. First up, we've got Caitlyn, who has had a long line of slow buffs over the last few years, but now she's getting the nerf hammer. And this is kind of bad timing, what with the fact that she's one of the core users of Lethal Tempo. And now she is getting slightly more attack speed. I don't really think that's going to make up for it. And then this W change, I think, really hits hard because as a big fan of Caitlyn myself, I am a W maxer. And I think the secret trick to laning phase dominance isn't like pushing fast with the Q, and that's what most people opt into. It is the W max, because with any kind of even remotely competent support, the old W max would be extremely punishing because it used to scale so hard. And it's basically like, this is a really crude way to put it, but it's basically like using her passive twice, because it does the damage. When they trigger it, you'll automatically do the damage of your passive on the first auto attack.
Yeah,
but then the Yordle Snap Trap, the Yordle Snap Trap has its own bonus damage ratio attached to it. But now that they've changed it so it's the same at all ranks, this really disincentivizes this. And I feel like it's kind of stupid because your only other choice is to max the net second, and that's just kind of goofy.
Oh, okay, so you're not maxing this over the Peacemaker.
No. W max first is... Now you have to max.
I was giving you the grace to make your argument, but I was going to come down on your heart after that. Okay, yeah,
it's a choice.
So yeah,
now it's not a choice.
I agree with you. Yeah, the Peacemaker just does so much damage that I think it would be unforgivable to not max that first.
Oh, now it is. Now it is.
Yeah. Oh, even the Snap Trap, I can't see maxing that over the Peacemaker.
Oh, dude, it was so much better than maxing Q. Plus, the Q isn't necessarily super easy to even hit someone with. If someone gets the Snap Trap,
they're always hitting them with a W. The Q is easy to hit someone with.
Well,
it's also pretty easy when they're running away from you.
I'm telling you, the W max is way more punishing in the laning phase. The Q just kills minions fast.
Alright, well, I think, now there's no argument to be made, which is a little sad. I always like when there's, a real choice that you make each game between different skills. As far as Caitlyn, yeah, this is clearly a nerf overall. And then the Ace in the Hole, also bonus AD down, although probably not as punishing as the Snap Trap nerf.
Considering it was 200% bonus AD for 15 years, I do think it's pretty silly.
I think that the reason that they're nerfing her is probably because she did very well, and this is just me speculating, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that she did very well with these item reworks where there are a lot of items that now give you attack damage and crit, which is two things that she likes, without the attack speed, which is something that she doesn't really need so much.
Well, she definitely needs attack speed.
I mean,
She's
you
not
know,
exactly Lucian and Ezreal.
she certainly doesn't, not care about attack speed. But I would say of the three things, that's the least important, right? Of attack damage, attack speed, and crit. And now she has a lot more options to build those two things, attack damage and crit, without having to spend a lot of extra gold on a lot of attack speed with the crit. So that's why I think she was probably very strong. And I don't know if she needed this nerf, but probably did need some kind of nerf. Caitlyn's one of those champions that I think is a little bit hard for them to balance long term. Because she gets so much of her damage out in a quick spike at the beginning, with her range and with the fact that she can, proc a headshot, and especially if you step in a trap, kind of get 2 or 3 shots off that do a lot of damage, and she doesn't really follow up with a lot more attacks after that. And so she doesn't really have the same pattern as a lot of the other ADCs do. Often her pattern is going to be considerably stronger or considerably weaker than what like your average auto attack ADC is going to do. And I think that's why, even though I think she's a great champ and not a game health issue, I think that sometimes they have a little bit of a hard time balancing her long term.
She is a hyper carry. She's just not one of the super good ones.
Yeah, you get late enough in the game, she can sometimes be a hyper carry. It really depends on the meta. Whether she's just the lane bully or whether she also scales really well into late game. And that's kind of what I mean, because I think that basically her late game value depends much more on the meta than most of the other ADCs do.
Alright, next up we got Camille. We got more bonus movement speed after you proc the first half of her Q. Less movement speed. Well, that's nice.
They're nerfing Camille for some reason. You have any idea?
Not really. I mean, the only people that play are like few and far between. She's one of the most unpopular champs in the game.
Yeah, but she's not like Singed, where like all the people who play her are really good at her. It seems like most people who I see play Camille just feed their ass off and hope that the rest of the team can carry them, because they do nothing.
Well, that's a shame, because in the right hand, she's still pretty good.
Yeah,
she's just kind of a very delicate.
Is a high kind of champ.
Yes, a very delicate scalpel and not a club like Singed.
Or Mordekaiser.
And then we got a reversion on the base damage of her ultimate, which just got buffed to this figure like 1 or 2 patches ago. And I guess that was way too much on-hit damage. Not that her ultimate lasts for anywhere near as long as it used to in the old days.
Oh, this is base damage on hit when you're inside the ultimatum?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was just like literally like when you put it down. Okay, so this is actually really big.
That would be pathetic.
Well,
here's my 5 damage. Yeah.
I thought it was like a Trundle pillar doing 1 damage. I thought that's kind of what they were doing, and then they like decided to make it 20, 30, 40 for fun, a while back.
No, I bet it still does 1 true damage to the people it knocks back.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I meant. But oh my god, yeah, this is a pretty big. I mean, not huge, but like a pretty big nerf for a champion that was already bad. That is just.
I don't think she's bad. She's just very difficult to play against a lot of top laners.
She's so she's so vulnerable to successful gank as well. I mean, she can get out of a gank if you can like hit like a really good wall bounce. But if she does get successfully ganked once or twice, she's basically out of the game.
I was just about to say this. She is one of the worst champions in the game from behind. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that to me makes her one of the worst champions in the game, because she's not even that great from ahead. She's okay.
She's definitely better when Divine Sundra was in the game.
For sure. Yeah, this is just horrible to see. I think Camille is in like ban my own team territory, honestly.
Oh, I don't think she's that bad. I would much even rather have her like top or in the jungle than a lot of more popular stupid things.
I would much rather have an Evelynn these days. Much rather have an Evelynn.
I don't want Evelynn. That's just too Jekyll and Hyde for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Camille is much better in that department, but at least you know you're going to get some kind of Bruiser-esque thing eventually. You get something like Evelynn, and like you don't know what you're getting, man.
Watch your Bruiser get stomped by the Mordekaiser who got 6 kills on her already.
Yeah, but you could have an Evelynn that might she might go like 15-0, But she could also just be an absolute blip on the map and not do anything like the whole game, and have like no way of really getting back into the game.
Yeah, I mean, at least she has like the spike damage to
As
like
like
assassinate a carry if she does it right later on.
As a frontliner, Camille will always have some kind of semblance of like usefulness.
Yeah, she's got to be like one of the squishiest frontliners in the game.
Well, it really just depends on how you build. I feel like I think she has a very flexible like build, and she doesn't need like 12 damage items. You can
I
run
don't think I've ever
just
seen like an unkillable Camille.
you can run just like 1 or 2 damage items, and the true damage on her Q will take her pretty far.
All right, I see you're an apologist.
Well, she's one of the champs I've tried to kind of pick
my
up.
piece on how bad she is. Yeah.
She's one of my projects like the last 3 years.
Oh, she's a project, all right. She's a fixer-upper.
All right, next up we've got Draven, and the original amount of gold with no stacks is going up from 25 from 10.
It used to be 50, right?
No, I don't think it was other 50. I think the amount he got per stack was better.
Okay.
Maybe it was 50, I don't know. And now he gets punished less for dying, which seems kind of idiotic.
Yeah, but 50% is what it used to be. I think they recently changed it to 75 for some reason. Maybe he was just getting ahead too often. But, yeah, honestly, like, Draven is not enough of a late game. I mean, he can be a late game threat, right, if nobody can kill him. But he's still really squishy and really easy to lock down late game if you have the right team going for it.
He is, but he is most certainly a late game threat. The scaling on his Q is absolutely preposterous.
I said that and then I walked it back because it wasn't an accurate way to say it. He is a threat in terms of, you know, if he plays the fight right and you don't, he can quadra kill, sure. But unlike a lot of the other, you know, ADCs who have better escapes, even if Draven gets very far ahead, you're not out of the game. And therefore, I don't mind. I don't mind him being able to scale up more often with these fewer stacks lost upon death. I'm perfectly fine with this, and honestly, I'd like to see a little more Draven. He's a fun champ.
I'm fine with it too because he's quite the bully. He's kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, everyone plays him like exactly the way he is too. You know.
It's almost like Vayne players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except they don't quit in 5 minutes when they lose the laning phase.
That was the old Vaynes. Most of the new Vaynes, like since Kai'Sa came out, most of the Vaynes that play Vayne now, most, not all, are a lot cooler. You know, that they're bros who will, you know, keep a good attitude and you know, keep trying to scale.
Vayne players are like the old Riven players, you know.
What are the old Riven players?
They were
really toxic.
They were the same as the Vayne players of like post 2012 or something. Riven players were the original Vayne players, man.
Oh, so they played Riven and then they played Vayne and then they played Kai'Sa.
I don't know what they moved. I don't think they ever moved on from Vayne. They're still AFKing in games.
Oh no, trust me. All
day,
the salty as fuck 0-2 Vaynes became salty as fuck 0-2 Kai'Sas that quit the game or just threw W's from base.
I think Vayne's a better champ and worse people player.
Yeah, let's talk about Gangplank.
Well, let's see. We've got 30 more health and more armor. Well, I'm not ever really be opposed to any Gangplank buffs because I just think he's a very awkwardly designed champion who has a very awkward place in the game, and his laning phase is always abysmal in my opinion. I don't think I've ever lost to a Gangplank in lane before.
Yeah, he's supposed to lose lane and then still not immediately, but, you know, certainly.
No, he's supposed to be like
error later on.
He's supposed to be similar to like Gangplank, where he's supposed to be able to
Gangplank is similar to Gangplank, I agree.
I mean, did I say that twice?
Yeah.
I said Gangplank's supposed to be similar to Pantheon, where he's supposed to be able to poke you out of the lane over and over, but his Q is so weak early on, he can never do that. So he just has this really awkward laning phase where he never has the damage to push you out, even when he's ahead.
Yeah, in the end, Gangplank is actually probably more similar to like Aurelion Sol. In terms of like, you just get stomped early, and then basically has a way to get a lot of damage with one zone later on.
I guess so. He's just basically an AD carry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's fair, right? And he has he has like Caitlyn range with his barrels.
I feel like his damage is just too situational. He's too like pedestrian in like a straight up 1v1,
Uh,
and he's just a very awkward champ. I wouldn't mind him getting like a third rework.
I
I
wouldn't
just want him
mind
to
like
be more
a
well rounded, you know.
agreed. I feel the same way.
He's
I
too
don't like
cool.
seeing this guy on the other team because even when we do stomp him, it's just such an uncomfortable threat late game. But I agree with you. I would much rather see him have kind of like a better landing phase, some better like feel to the way he plays because it is awkward, like you said.
Plus,
All the ranges feel really awkward. Even when you're the opponent and trying to hit the barrels, that feels awkward. And yeah, and a little bit less of a threatening late game when he's behind. Be nice.
I don't think there's another champion like Gangplank who's does such high damage that
Yeah.
has that is so situational. It's difficult to actually bring out his potential. I honestly think he's one of the hardest champs in the game to play.
Yeah.
Not in a good way. I think his barrel mechanic is fundamentally just user unfriendly and too
I'm
dumb.
trying to think for other ones that might be like as situational and does that type of damage. I'm thinking like Aatrox, Chase, but not quite to the level that Gangplank is.
Oh, those champions are way more like straightforward than Gangplank.
Yeah, they are. They are. So I think we're in agreement. But yeah, do you think that this little boost to the survivability in both health and armor is going to move the needle for him?
I mean, he's always a pushover in the laning phase, like no matter
Mhm.
who he's laning against. I don't know who he gives a hard time in the laning phase. It ain't bruisers and it ain't tanks. And anyone ranged can basically all in him. So, I mean, I guess it's good for him, but it's not going to help him really with anything.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to help him, they needed to bring back the mana return on kill on his Q that he used to have in his
They
second
give him
rework.
50 more auto range like they did with Tryndamere.
That would be cool. If his Q had another 25-50 attack range, that would make him a
Oh
little
god,
more.
that would fucking suck late game when he has the 3 barrels out and you're trying to attack it.
Well, the placedown range of the barrels is far greater than the range of his Q, for instance, for one thing. I'm talking about just like laning.
Can he proc the barrels with his Q?
Yes, but he has to be.
Huh.
They have to be in range of his Q, and he can
Yeah.
place the barrels down like 3 times longer than the range of his Q. It's a
Oh,
lot.
that's true.
It's a lot longer than people think. The range on that. He can drop it really far, but he can shoot it much less far.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what
Yeah,
I'm
what
saying, he
about
just
with
needs like a laning stage stability. And in the old days, like only like 5 or 6 years ago, when he last hit something with his Q, he got like mana back on his Q. They took that away in his latest rework.
The senator and I are in vigorous agreement.
Anyway, yeah, I like Gangplank because he's just cool. Alright, next up we'll go to Gnar. We've got more attack damage per level. I think he also gains the most in the game when he transforms too. And then we have a
Mininar
higher.
basically has the best stats in the game, and Mininar has the worst stats in the game. For a lot of different things.
And then we got more AD on his boomerang throw, which I can only imagine translates to his like boulder throw when he's in Mega Gnar, even though it's not stated here.
Usually they would put it down.
Yeah, it makes me think it's not, but it seems like it would be if they buff one. They'd probably buff the other.
I'll check it real quick while we're talking, but yeah, these are small buffs to Gnar, and honestly, I think that they're kind of comfortable, if not even happy, just keeping Gnar in a perpetually underpowered state because of what it does to the pro scene. Where you know, while you're in like the mini Gnar form, or at least while you're not close to transforming, the entire team with Gnar doesn't want to fight, and when you're about to transform or just after you've transformed, the entire team without Gnar doesn't want to fight. So he's the type of champion that like they tried to design like timing windows, which is a cool idea in theory, right? Like you know, it's almost like you're like Clark Kent, and then occasionally you get to transform into Superman. It's a cool idea. It's just like in a competitive 5v5 game. It's the kind of thing that that at the high level is just discouraging action and fighting so much that I think they're just trying to keep him in like an Urgot level, like a pre-Urgot rework, underpowered state. And they're giving him a little bit here, but I don't think it's going to move the needle. And I'm looking at the, or at least I think I'm looking at the Mega Gnar.
It's called like Boulder Toss or something.
Because where is it?
Hold on. Let the expert check this out.
Yeah, I don't see. Oh, here we go. Mega. Boulder Toss has a 140% AD ratio. So yeah, I would think that that probably did not change, because otherwise they would have said 140 to 150 or whatever they raised it to.
All right. Next
Long story
up,
short, yeah, I don't think this is enough to move the needle on an underpowered champion, and intentionally underpowered.
Next up, we've got Hui, and we got a nerf on the flat max health magic damage of his QQ. This is the one that functions just like Karma's Q in terms of mechanics. And they didn't touch the base damage or its awesome ratio or his passive, so this was probably always pretty a little overtuned, in my personal opinion, for his spam ability.
Yeah, I'm just going to defer to your expert opinion on this one. I'm still figuring out sometimes, what Hui is doing when he's shooting stuff at me.
He's 1v5ing! I'll never forget that you told me that.
I mean, he certainly does that sometimes.
Anyway, and then we also got his QE combination where he super annoyingly can push the lane out like an absolute mad lad with this. And people just max this first now because it's even more annoying than like Echo's Q or Morgana's W in terms of pushing out the lane, where he just sends out this big wide fissure, I guess you could call it, and it just does so much damage over time. It just gobbles the wave up like crazy. And because this is his Q and it's tied to the mana cost and Q of also his QQ, I know this is getting complicated, that this wave clear mechanic ability is also just dirt cheap because it shares the same mana cost of his QQ, which is also his spam ability. I know all that sounded
so many times. I thought maybe I was talking to Evelyn.
I know that sounded convoluted, but what I'm saying is that like Tormented Soil on like Morgana costs like 120 mana or whatever, some crazy thing.
Yeah,
but because
waves are cool, but yeah,
because this is tied to his spam ability, this is like so dirt cheap that it's kind of criminal. So he ends up being really obnoxious as shit in the laning phase.
Probably, smart move, nerfing that. But all the base damages are still the same.
Yep. As long as they don't mess with his passive, I think he'll still be very potent. And his ultimate is just stank nasty.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's 1v5 in people, dude. but Hui is also like fairly easy to catch and kill, almost in like a similar way to Draven. Doesn't really have any way to protect himself besides to like make a really good CC type of hit on you. I guess he has a few different ways to CC you, but they all take skill or have a delay, or to just kind of speed himself out. And if you have a gap closer, he's not getting away from you.
All right, next up we got Aurelia, who's losing close to 200 HP at level 18. So we're reverting her prior to the durability update.
A little over 150.
And this is definitely not going to endure people to not build 5 attack speed items on Aurelia. I can tell you that much right now.
You think it's not going to encourage people to build more health to compensate? You think they're just going to go like full glass cannon?
I feel like the last few years, Aurelia players have really leaned into like the Cheese Lord, like glass cannon build. Whereas like, in the old days, it was always like Trinity Force, get some tank items, Now, those days are long gone. I'm not even talking about pre-rework. And when she first came out,
she has like the Defy the Odds or whatever the the passive is called, that gives her like more tankiness and or CC the more enemy champs are near her.
It was tenacity.
She was really, oh, was it just called tenacity?
No, it gave her tenacity. I think it was called Against All Odds or something.
Yeah. So yeah, like in the past, like she really could, could survive a very long time, even against several players. You know who can't do that? Camille.
Okay. Anyway, it's a lot of health to lose.
Yeah, that's 10 per level. I mean, it's not hurting her that much early game, but never feels nice to have 150 less health in the end game.
All right. Let's see. We've got a little bit less attack damage for Jinx.
Oh yeah, that's not too bad. That's 0.25 per level, or about 5 AD at level 18.
Oh my god.
She's still really good.
And then we got good old Cassante, who I feel like
Oh my god.
I'm just well within my rights to skip every time he's in the patch notes. So anyway, we got less of a mana cost on his super spammy Q, and I guess it's getting more spammy. It's probably a good thing that he always has mana to cast this, because when he hits you with this, it means he can always follow up with his passive true damage attack. And if he can't keep doing those things back to back, he really doesn't have any trading potential, since all his other buttons have a much longer cooldown.
Yep, Cassante's in the game. And Karthus lost damage on his Q.
Yeah, the hell with the rest of these changes.
Exactly.
Alright, less damage on Karthus' Q. Mind you, this does double damage if it only hits a single thing.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he's spamming this every 1 second.
Less than that.
So
yeah.
even these tiny numbers are significant. These are such ugly numbers now. 43 to 119.
I feel like they've messed with the numbers on his Q almost as many times as they've messed with Lee Sin's like attack damage.
Oh, this is brutal. Why can't we just do like, I don't know, 40 to 120, 45 to 120?
Sounds silly, but like Karthus is such a relic of a slower like mid lane laning phase that I feel like this is just going to affect him in the jungle, because I feel like you see him in the jungle more anywhere else.
I never see Karthus mid. I always see him in the jungle.
Yeah.
Or very occasionally bot lane.
Very painful.
Like
but
is that an APC?
I'm the only one with balls to still play him mid.
Yeah.
But it's a mistake to play him mid. He's just so slow now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could probably use some type of way to speed himself up a little bit. Obviously, you'd have to take something away from the rest of his kit. But I feel like that would make him into a much more modern and slightly more skillful champion.
No, I honestly think they could give him a lot of power to help him mid lane, and just make it so he does less damage to monsters with all his buttons to keep him out of the jungle. For one thing, they need to completely like rework his E. It needs to be way more impactful and way more devastating for people to sit inside that thing. It's a glorified Sunfire cape. Dude, that thing is terrible.
Yeah.
It could be way better. The scaling on it is pathetic, and the base damage is basically Sunfire cape.
The only kind of nice thing is you get it like automatically when you're in your death form, right?
Yeah, but it's like so. Anyone that's been playing this game for more than a couple of years has like already like subconsciously registered in their brain that it's like active. So I don't know. It just doesn't feel very impactful when you're dead. Maybe
yeah, almost like it's almost like an E max for like a Nasus E if you're not maxing it.
Maybe when he was dead, if it like slowly grew in size by like 300% over the course of his passive, that would be way better.
Get away from Karthus, yeah.
That would play more into his suicide fantasy that I don't want to believe he has to play that way, but, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and interesting that I felt like they had to nerf him here, although maybe it is just because he got too good in the jungle. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I really don't want to see him in the jungle. That is so silly. I feel like he has a lot of potential on what they could do to bring him up to speed without losing his ultimate or his passive. I feel like there's a lot of room for that. And he's such an iconic geezer of a champion that I don't want to.
He's definitely a geezer. I don't know if I think of Karthus as iconic.
My friend Johnny calls him Bag of Bones.
He doesn't have any bones. He's
Bag of Bones.
He's like a white.
I have the Grim Reaper skin. Maybe that's why he calls him that all the time.
Maybe.
Bag of Bones.
I think the Grim Reaper has bones, right?
In the Grim Reaper skin, he has just bones on like a cape. Anyway, you're right. He's probably not an iconic champion, but he is an old timer,
Yeah, he is a classic.
And time hasn't really been too good to him. Even though, like, with like AP items, he can still put out a ton of DPS with like his Q spam. It's just the rest of his abilities are so underwhelming. It's kind of sucks.
Yeah. Although, you know, the nice thing about him, right, is all the burn items in the game he can proc very easily.
Yeah, you always bring that up, and then I always say how the burn items are like a trap, and
All right.
how Magic
Let's go
Pen
for
is
Kazi.
better. Alright, next up we've got extra base damage on Kha'Zix's extremely low cooldown Q. Just a little bit though, but I'm pretty sure when you evolve this, it gets increased by like 40% or something. And that doesn't even take into account the damage they take when they're by themselves. This does an insane amount of damage.
This is just extra damage on top of what he's already doing with all his skills. And Kha'Zix's champ I honestly like to see a lot of in the game. He feels like one of the more like skillful assassins, and there is the counterplay that you can stay near your teammates, which makes him less threatening late game. Like most assassins, but I think even more so with Kha'Zix because he has to isolate you to get all this damage in.
Yeah.
Even he's a fun champion with all the jump resets.
Even with just 10 extra damage, it'd probably be really easy to see the impact of this buff in a game because of his isolation mechanic and his evolve mechanic on his Q.
Absolutely. He's the type of champion that either like all-ins you and you know, kills you immediately or isn't going to win the fight. So that 10 damage, it's scarier than it looks.
Alright, next up we've got Lulu, who's getting the ultimate on her cooldown reduced by a lot early on and then pretty much the same later on. But then probably more interesting is the knockup duration is going up by a whopping 25%. Sort of.
Yeah, full second knockup from 75, from 0.75.
And that's something I think has been unchanged since she came out in like 2010 or 11 or something.
Oh yeah, that's like a mechanical type of thing. They very rarely change knockup durations. This, I actually played a Lulu game 2 days ago, and I felt the impact of that increased knockup time. Nice.
Yeah, I think Malphite's is 1 second, so...
Yeah, and the wild growth is really useful in laning phase. Once you get it at 6, it is something that that turns fights around.
It's such a good ability.
Yeah,
it just does so many things. Just like Janna's ultimate, it just does so many things.
Yeah, you could use it offensively too. You can basically you know, like ultimate your tank, and make it impossible for them to get away from your tank sticking on them. Yeah, this is a really nice ability, and it is one that you often find yourself, you know, like getting ganked while it's on cooldown in laning phase. So nice to see the cooldown reduction or the cooldown buff at the early levels.
Yep. Awesome ultimate. Alright, next up, Master Yi, who desperately needed some help after losing lethal tempo, and he got it. So we got...
he was definitely one of the top lethal tempo users.
Sort of exaggerating because I don't care about him. But at the same time, let's see, he got...
almost 100 extra health. At,
90 more HP, and then more attack speed, more damage, and more armor. What a stud.
Yeah, basically just more stats, right? You know, to make up for lethal tempo.
That's such a Master Yi change. He should have gotten 5 more movement speed. What'd you say?
I said, what rune does he use now?
Probably, I don't know, Conquer, press the attack. Something in precision, I'm sure.
Okay.
It's the only thing that really makes sense for him.
Yeah, Conqueror makes a lot of sense, I think, in most games. How quickly he's attacking, and now he attacks even quicker because they buffed his attack speed growth.
Yeah, none of that's going to make up for the champions that lost lethal tempo. I mean, you literally...
Well, he lost lethal tempo, but not only does he get all these stats, he gets whatever the new rune has. It feels pretty good for him, honestly.
What new rune?
I mean, to get, like, Conquer or whatever? I mean, that's, you know, that's not an insignificant amount of damage.
Yeah, but getting more damage, I mean, unless it's that amount of damage doesn't compensate for the amount of attack speed.
Yeah, I suppose lethal tempo, yeah, he really needed the attack speed to reset his Q real quickly. That's a fair point.
It's the same with every AD carry. It's like every AD carry lost like 40% of their damage output in the late game, basically.
Do you know what he uses with the new ADC items?
Honestly,
Because I haven't seen it.
he gets so much from his ultimate, he can just run lethality if he wanted to.
Yep. And then, like, just the attack damage and crit items. I feel like they'd work well with him. Obviously, he wasn't saying no to the increased attack speed. But,
The scary
those
Master
just
Yis are the ones that just build Bork and then just go straight tank.
Yep.
Those are the ones that are actually the smart ones. The ones that just get Bork or Ginsu's and then just go straight tank, those are the ones you gotta watch out for. They're the ones that main something else and have a brain, and then they decide to play Master Yi.
I like that the two of those things go together. You main something besides Master Yi, and you have a brain.
Yeah. Okay, next
I
up.
apologize. I've got to take a break for 5 minutes. Can you pause this?
Okay. All right. We are back for part 2 of 14.11. Let's get right into the Kaiser, who's got a bit of presumably a jungle nerf here, where the base damage on his ultimate no longer scales. Technically, I guess that would hurt him in the laning phase too, but it's such small numbers, I feel like he'd feel it the most in the jungle. But then, overall, the damage cap against monsters, and this is in reference to the max health damage on his passive that's not stated here, is actually going up by a lot. So this will help him take things like Dragon solo and stuff like that.
Right. I think and I don't know if you wanted to talk about each thing individually, but I think the Q is a little bit of a nerf overall as well.
Could be. I was talking about the passive.
Yeah. Well, the passive is, I mean, the passive, certainly is going to make his jungle clear. I mean, definitely like more unreliable in the early part of the game. It was always kind of weird how the base second would rise. The base damage would rise with level, especially this kind of insignificant amount. Really, it's like the AP ratio is what you care about with the passive. So I don't think it's hurting him too much. And again, they're kind of like increasing the max against monsters, so it's probably not that bad in the jungle.
Yep, well this definitely has to be a Q nerf, because before it was like 245, and now it's like 294. So this is definitely a nerf. Basically it just loses like 40 or 50 damage off the top end.
Right. And the way that they handle the levels works a little bit differently. It's different math if you hover over it. But ultimately this is doing a little bit less damage at all levels, and considerably less at level 18. And I don't know. Kaiser's a very strong champ. I don't think this is going to obliterate him.
It is a strong ability, and it has been buffed a few times, and it has a really short cooldown, and it doesn't cost mana, and it does like a lot of extra damage when you hit one person. So yeah.
He's the type of champ that if you nerfed the numbers enough, right, he wouldn't be able to stat check anyone, and he'd actually have a lot of trouble. But I don't think that this moderate nerf is enough to make him irrelevant. I think he's just a very strong champion.
Yeah.
Again, he's one of the few juggernauts in the game that really has a way to long range engage.
All right. Next up, we've got Nami, who got 3 more attack damage. Cheaper W, probably was long overdue. And now we have a better slow all game long, where it prompt scaled up before on her ultimate.
Yeah, these are some really nice buffs. I do think that she needed them, because Nami's the type of champ that the Q really is like the critical ability for you to hit, and it's very hard to hit. Granted, it can hit 3-4 people and stun them at once, but just how slow it is, and with the meta just being more and more mobility creep, it's just very hard for Nami to actually hit her Q. It's also very hard for her to get away, even with her ultimate, because the ultimate, while it's a very powerful ability, it's not as wide as it really looks. Like, it's easy to get away from by sidestepping it if you're not right next to her. And if you are next to her, it takes so long to use it. Sometimes you can just kill her if you have a lot of damage before she even gets it off. It takes so long to actually channel that R. It seems like it's like almost a full second. As far as the W buff, this is really nice. I often just start tier on Nami. Not as the first item. Obviously, you get the World Atlas first, but as my first like real item, I go tier on my first back, and I'll spam the W through a laning phase, not only for poke, but also just to keep my lane partner healthy. And that is a really, really expensive ability. Generally, you want to max W first. Some people do the E first max on Nami. But I think with how much better they've made the W over the last like year or two, I think it's hard to justify not doing a W max.
Oh, you have to do that.
Yeah. And so when you're at like level 7, 8, 9, and you've got like level 4 or 5 ebb and flow, spending 20 less mana each time is really nice, because really the only thing limiting that is not so much its cooldown, it's just the mana cost. Nice buffs. I still don't think it's going to make Nami real good. I would like a slightly more responsive Q, and maybe a slightly more responsive R to really see her in the meta.
I don't really think she's bad, she just doesn't really stand out. I definitely think she's way closer to relevance than like Sona. That's for sure.
I think Sona's better than she is, but I will say that Nami, against the right composition, if the other team doesn't have a lot of dashes, or just a lot of mobility in general, can be a very effective champion, no question about it. It's just like, you know, how often are you going to see a team without like at least like 2 champions, you know, that not only can dash but can also like, you know, essentially one combo Nami.
Alright, next up we've got Nasus, who doesn't...
This guy keeps getting buffed.
Well, actually, yeah, I mean, we do have a little bit of extra attack damage growth, which isn't really hugely consequential for Nasus, to be honest, when you consider how much he uses his Q. And then we've got... we've got a buff to his W, which is kind of funny. And I'd like to say for most of Nasus... What?
Spirit Fire is his E.
What did I say?
W.
Okay.
Which is the Wither.
Whatever. That's what I meant to say. That.
But yeah, this is an interesting buff, isn't it?
It is, because for most of Nasus's lifetime, what Spirit Fire used to do was it just reduce someone's armor by like 15 to like 35 or 40, and then not too terribly long ago they made it so it was a flat percentage, and now it's just gotten stronger like every year since.
Yeah, and in general, it's still like a fairly irrelevant ability compared to really his Q as most of his kit. The W, obviously, you're going to need to catch your targets, although often you just put the 1 point in W. Sometimes you put a few points into it before you start leveling your E. Really kind of depends on the player.
Well, it depends on who you're laning against, because Max Wither can shut down a host of champs, and Max Spirit Fire can be good against another group of champs.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and then there's the, you know, the trashy, degenerate AP Nasus that Max Spirit Fire.
I was just about to mention that. I was like, beware of this mana cost. It comes with its own danger.
But what I really like about this is they're making it even better for the classic build Nasus, who wants to wither you, run up, and use Q a few times. But they're doing that by buffing the E, which I think is kind of like a cool give and take. Because the armor reduction is probably the biggest part of this. The mana, yeah, it's nice. He does run out of mana sometimes.
Yeah. Nasus has been my go-to ban for like a couple years, honestly.
Yeah, and you still play him sometimes, right?
I'm really good at him, but I haven't played him that consistently for a long time because I just think he's too kind of unsporting.
I can agree with that. He's one of the most, like, you know, like, oversimplified stat check degenerate type of champions in the game.
I think he's gotten to a point where, unlike a lot of older champions, he's aged like fine wine, where the modern era of, like, newer items and keystones and runes and masters or whatever have really... He's so simplistic that these things have, like, made him not have the weaknesses he used to have in the old days, where... He basically lost lane to everyone for the first 10 minutes, Now he beats everyone the second he gets his ultimate, even the people that are supposed to counter him. Even like his hardest counters, which is most people would probably say is like
Garen. It also helps that he's been buffed 42 times.
Yeah, like his classic ones like Olaf, Trundle, Pantheon, Garen, Renekton, whatever you think his classic like early game counters are. As soon as he hits 6, you can't tangle with him, man. His DPS just gets so silly, and that's your window. And the thing is, even if you dumpster him, there's so much capacity in the game to stack ability haste that he can just get himself back into the game like so fast. It's
what's also
it's a very bad.
What's also helped him age well is the Ghost upgrades from 2 years. Like Ghost used to be a crappy summoner that like even Nasus didn't really want.
Well, it was good for a long time, but now it's been nerfed a few times.
It's been nerfed a few times, but it's still better than it used to be a while back.
Well, when you could reset it like multiple times for like a couple of years, it was pretty damn
good. That made Nasus really scary, yeah. He chases down one target with Wither and gets the kill, and then he just goes crazy with Ghost.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, man.
Personally, I like phase rush on him because it just makes him... Gap closing is like his whole shtick, and if you just get there faster, you just win.
Alright, as much as I'd like to linger on Nasus, I think we're going to have a discussion with Ornn here, aren't we?
Yeah, let's just cut to the chase here. There's a lot of shenanigans right here, but the gist of it is they were tired of actually putting forth the effort to constantly keep removing and creating new masterwork items, since whoever's in charge of Ornn was just like threw their hands up in the air in the boardroom and they're like, I'm tired of it. You guys change the items every 3 to 6 months. I'm tired of coming up with stupid names and random arbitrary stats for these mastercraft.
We keep having to Photoshop these item icons every time you make one to make the new Ornn item.
I'm tired of adding that red tint to all of the icons.
How many times do I have to do this? Can I have a macro already?
Anyway, so the gist of it is they just came down to this brass tacks formula of making it so virtually all of the legendary items, except for some ones that already transform into other crap, just gain stats according to a flat value of gold, and there's some breakdown of all the stats here. It's not really worth breaking down too hard. Essentially, if you wanted to upgrade something that didn't have a Mastercraft counterpart before, now you can, and everything you ever wanted to upgrade can now be upgraded except the stuff that already transforms into other things.
Right. Yeah, you and the Ornn player don't have to worry about, oh, did you buy your Ornn item first? The gist of it, just to expand a little bit more, is that you get 1,000 gold worth of stats on whatever item you have in slot 1, or whatever, the closest is to 1 for, for a legendary item that can be upgraded, which again is almost all of them. And it doesn't matter how much of each stat is on the item, but it does matter what stats are there. So if you have an item with 1,000 attack damage and 1% attack speed, what it'll do, the Ornn upgrade will give you 500 gold worth of attack damage and 500 gold worth of attack speed. And the amounts are basically taken from like what the base. So for example, like for health. Well, health is a weird one because they did some really weird shit with health. But like for magic resist, it's taken based off of the value of 1 point of magic resist for the null magic mantle, the simplest magic resist item, is 18 gold per 1 resistance. So that's what they're going to give you now when you do the Ornn upgrade. So if you had an item that was only magic resistance, you'd get 1,000 gold worth of magic resistance, or about, I don't know, that's about, I think 55 magic resist. Not that there was any item in the game that's legendary that only has MR. But that's kind of the point. And honestly, let me be the riot apologist here, because I think this is a very smart and very good change. Not only does it simplify with having to figure out what Ornn item it is, and having to like mess around with what slot you want it in. Although you may still do that if you want to choose kind of what stats you're getting. But in addition to that, this is really nice, because it's not like you're getting like a different weird amount of upgrades for each item. You can look at it and say, oh, I have an item there that does attack damage and ability power? Great, I'm going to get 500 gold worth of each. very simple, and cuts out a lot of the confusion with what items do what, which is something that most people just didn't think about anyway, but just kind of got something at random. The only really weird thing with health, they give you a variable amount of health for each 1,000 gold, essentially. And what's really weird and kind of stupid, you can tell me if you think there's any reason they did this. If you had an item that has health only, it gives you 2.6 per point. If the item has health and one other upgradable stat, it's 2.85 per point. Then, if the item has health and two other upgradable stats, we're back to 2.6. And then if the item has health and three other upgradable stats, then we go all the way back to like what it was with one upgradable stat, and even farther, now it's 3.3 gold per point, which is the least efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So why are they giving you the most beneficial amount of health with health only or two other upgradable stats, but not one or three?
Well, I imagine this has something to do to offset Warmogs or Heartsteel from becoming too silly, and also to give value to items that have health but are built on like bruisers or AD carries that also have damage.
Well, Warmogs and Heartsteel, health is the only stat, right?
Yes. Well, I don't know. One of them has haste.
So basically, this is actually the most efficient. You will get the best value for your money with those.
Excellent.
And you will also get the best value for your money if the item has health and two other upgradable stats, but not one or three.
I don't know, man. Weird? My personal opinion is that, like all things Riot ever does, your mastercrafted items will probably end up being weaker now than they were before because of whoever was in charge of this probably arbitrarily just gave them nice, big, chunky, round numbers. And I wager that you were getting more than $1,000 worth of stats since Ornn has been able to make these unique items. And now you're probably getting something a bit less exciting but more predictable.
Let's take a look. I'm just randomly picking Shurelya's Requiem. We had 65 AP, 25 ability haste, 200 mana regen. It's actually like a good little experiment. Let's see what it builds from the Shurelya's Reverie.
Probably be more accurate to look like 2 years in the past at those.
So this is giving you 15 ability haste. We're really getting into the weeds here, but I kind of like this. It's giving you how much ability power? 10 ability power. 15 ability power. 10 ability haste. And did it give you any extra movement speed or mana regen? Yes, it did. So 75% mana regen and 2% movement speed. Compare it to now. You know what? This is just going to take too long. I'm just going to pull shit out of my ass and say that it's probably better now.
My money says the support items will probably be better now, and everything else will be slightly worse.
Yeah, I mean, like if an item only gave you ability power, for example, you'd get 50 extra ability power with the new paradigm. And I feel like that's probably doing better than you were getting before. In fact, we may even be able to look. Rabadon's Death Crown gave 190, and how much does Death Cap give?
I was just about to say that. I was like, you can give this to Rabadon's, right? Because that would be funny.
Yeah, Rabadon's gives 140. So it's actually break even. The new one will also give 190 with the upgrade.
Cool.
Alright, so we're probably they were probably shooting to break even on most of the existing items, and maybe that's even where they came up with that weird formula that's only good with 0 or 2 other stats. Maybe that's just like how they got it to be like the closest possible to the items that already existed for the Ornn upgrades.
The only thing I wonder is that is it going to give you extra stats based on gold of things not mentioned here, like Magic Pen, Lifesteal, Movement Speed? Because those are things in the past that Mastercrafted items have given you 1, 2, 3% more of.
So my understanding is no, it won't give you like extra lifesteal.
Lethality also.
But that also won't count. That will also won't count against what your other stats get, right? So like, if an item only gave attack damage, attack speed, and lifesteal, for example, you get 500 gold worth of attack damage and 500 gold worth of attack speed. The lifesteal wouldn't dilute it to 333.
Now all they're missing is in the next Ornn rework to toggle where you want your shit to go in.
That would actually be kind of cool if, like, he upgraded you and then he gave you just, like, a little, like, Nico menu.
Like, no,
Like
no, I'm putting
pop-up.
all 1,000 into AP.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. Like, just pick one stat to put 1,000 gold into. That wouldn't be too bad. Honestly, I always thought it would be, like, nice if the Ornn items upgrades were a little bit cooler. Like, each one upgraded into, like, a better version of its ability. But I feel like they probably never went that route because it was just going to be, like, too much work to balance all of them.
Especially
It
when
would
they
be like
change the
adding an
game
extra
every
30
month.
items to him. Yeah. It would still be really cool, though, wouldn't it?
Yes and no. I mean,
I'll take the yes. but
we'd
not the no.
basically be getting mythics back, you know?
Yeah, but only if you have Ornn on your team.
Alright, that's interesting. Next up, let's go to Pantheon. Goofishly getting a AP ratio on his Q. He's
Yeah, what is
losing the
this?
base damage on his W, but now he's getting a nice chunky flat magic or flat damage or flat max health damage component on his W, which is cool.
They've gotten so technical. Yeah.
And that's no longer having an AP ratio that was 100%, but now it's scaling with his own health. And then finally, his E, which is the thing that blocks things that are facing him, or that he's facing, whatever. Now the Aegis version of that, where if he has 5 stacks of his passive, and it lasts a little longer, it also gives him bonus resistances based on his health and a flat amount. So this is actually pretty cool. This is the kind of stuff I would like to see on more things in the game that open up like new ways and new ways to play a champion, because for like 10 million years the only thing people think about is Pantheon. Okay, he's just going to run at me with like 5 armor pen items.
Yeah,
So,
stun me and then see if you can kill me with one combo.
yeah, so this
Yeah.
kind of thing where you could get a lot of bonus armor and MR with that health ratio is kind of cool.
Yeah, and this is 4% of the enemy's maximum health, right?
Yeah.
Per 1,000 bonus health that you have. I'm looking to make sure. Yes, it looks like it. It's not scaling up the total damage of the skill, it's the actual ratio, which is nice. So if you've got just 1,000 bonus health, and this is level 5, you get 11% of the target's maximum health.
That's cool.
Where do you usually max the shield fall?
Oh, you have to max it last because it has no damage component that scales with AD.
Okay, so like,
That's how it's actually been since he was released. Even before his rework, his W did magic damage that didn't scale with
okay,
AD.
so yeah, from level 1 to 13, 5% of the target's health, even at level 1, you're not doing too badly, but certainly in the mid-game is going to be much, much better than a rank 1 60 damage. And then once you max it all the way, 7% of the target's maximum health. If they've got about 3,000 maximum health, you're breaking even with 220 at level 18.
Bro,
So I'd say that's not too bad.
I'm over here. I'm already drooling at the Heartsteel implications with Titanic and that new item that's like Atmos.
I don't know that you really want to build Pantheon tanky. He can't really stay in the fight for long enough to be that relevant if he can't spike someone. But you might be able to build a little bit.
Bro, you can make his W do like 30% of someone's max health, man.
Well, let's see. If you had 3,000 bonus health, which I think is... You're usually not getting above 3,000 bonus health outside of anybody besides like Mundo and Shogath. You know, that's 12% in addition to, let's say you max this last still, the 5% from rank 1. 19% of the maximum health is nothing to sneeze at, but how are we going to do the other 80%?
Man, well, no one says he still has to play the same way. You can just say, hey, I'm going to take this game. I'll still do some damage, but this is what I'm doing this game. No one says he has to be like, you know, killing people left, right, and center every single game.
Yeah,
That's what I say.
guess
I
that's
like there's to be more than one way for
true.
champions to play.
What's the cooldown on this? Oh, it's not too bad. Yeah, 13 to 9. Maybe you put a few ranks into this second and build a little bit of ability haste in addition to your health, and now you're like a stun machine tank. Interesting.
I'm gonna check this out next time I play some ARAM customs with my friends, man. It's about to get
That
silly.
reminded me, I wanted to ask you, have you seen any of the Speed Doom build in the last patch?
Speed Doom.
Yeah, remember we were talking about, our new Doom build is, going like all speed with some of the runes and the new items.
Did
Like
everything
the
get
new
movement
Phantom Dancer
speed?
giving you 12%.
Oh, I forgot about that, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
Someone will catch on eventually.
All right, I think we gotta popularize it.
Next up, we've got Singed here, and we got a bit of a buff to his Q.
Okay, you didn't even want to talk the other stuff that they did with like Aegis Assault.
Well, I mentioned that when I was talking about the resistances.
Fair enough, but yeah, like Pantheon changes are cool. All right, sorry, Singed.
Alright, we've got a, what do you call this? Is this a 6% buff?
This would be 6% more damage than he's currently doing, but just with the AP ratio. Singed isn't always building a lot of AP.
Yep, but his ultimate always gives him AP.
Mm-hmm. I mean, usually you build a few AP items. I mean, even just like the Rylas.
Also,
Comes with a lot of AP.
one thing to take away from this is if you're in his trail for even like a split second, I think you always take like 3 ticks of damage no matter what.
Yes, you're poisoned for a couple of seconds.
And so you're guaranteed to at least take like 90% AP or whatever it's worth of damage. This is just a tick, and I don't know, this is like a half second, quarter second, whatever
Half
it
second.
is.
Yeah.
So this is actually his real AP ratio for taking even one true instance of damage is like somewhere around 90-98% of his AP or something.
Yep, or you could look at it as 21.25% AP per second instead of 20. It's not a real big change. I think that honestly, I don't think the Insanity Potion is a real big change either, like, with the type of ability haste that he usually has. I think because the Insanity Potion does give ability haste, right? On its own?
Ability haste? No.
It doesn't. Okay. For some reason, whenever I'm playing Singed, it seems like my cooldown, my R cooldown is always up when I want it. Always.
Well, it lasts while it ticks down, so.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? Because it lasts like 30 seconds. But, yeah, somehow, despite that, like 120 seconds is a long cooldown, and obviously Singed doesn't build a lot of ability haste in general because his main bread and butter damage, the Q, isn't going to be helped at all by ability haste. Somehow it still seems like his R is always up, and so I think that these are just like nice little touches, but not a huge buff.
Alright, next up, we've got some changes to our new little dragon here. We've got a bit more base AD. Probably desperately needed that for the laning phase. I got a pretty low opinion of this champion at the moment. And then we got more bonus damage based on his critical strike that factors into his Q damage. I'll be honest, I think he probably just needs every buff he can get.
I saw this guy in like every game the month after he came out, and I don't know, at some point it just like, it went from 100 to 0 in terms of like how often I see him. It felt like it lasted a little while. It wasn't like everybody was just trying the new champion for a couple days and then realized that that he was Renata Glesk.
He's not that bad.
We just have to take a pot shot at Renata Glesk in every episode.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. I still think he's just bad for...
These are really big buffs. Like the Super Scourger Breath getting much more critical strike chance, in addition to the fact that some of the items that he's building are giving him a lot of crit. I don't know if he was hurt by the items changing in the last patch, or he was just kind of staying weak for several patches, and they decided to give him all these buffs at once. But these are big.
Well, I don't think he's been strong yet, for one. I think he has basically the same problem he's had since he's came out, and it takes too long for him to get to the final form of his Q, and that's where he can actually start being like taken seriously. Prior to
Even the
that,
third
it just
form of the Q is quite good.
takes him so long to scale up that he's just yeah, it just takes him too long to scale.
Yeah, it has absolutely no lane pressure whatsoever. But I don't know. I don't think he's terrible after he gets the first upgrade to his Q. And certainly once he gets the second one, I think he's pretty good personally.
I don't think so. And I
Yeah,
feel like
these
he.
are. Yeah, I mean, if you didn't think that he was good, until now, I think that these buffs might convince you otherwise.
I don't really think it addressed what his core problems were, to be honest.
It certainly didn't address the core problems, right? His laning phase is still going to be crap. This is all like critical strike chance that he's being helped by.
They could
But
fix him really easily
I think it opens up a path for him to build a lot of items that maybe he couldn't last patch. The ones that give a lot of crit.
if. I feel like they could fix him pretty easily by just making a couple really, really simple changes. And just like, if they just increase his stack generation by last hitting things from like 1 to 2 and made it so his W or his E or his ultimate could also generate like 1 stack, I think he'd be fixed. Because then he would
think he'd be way too powerful.
Then he'd be a threat fast enough to actually start becoming a factor. And you're right, his laning phase is absolutely pathetic. It's like worse than Senna's or something. It's like
It's got a little bit of safety to it, but it's got no positive pressure.
Yeah, at least Senna has the absurd
you
range.
play Smolder, you're basically giving up the first 2 dragons.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you basically just made my point for me. He needs to come online faster.
Right, but I also think that he's like a ridiculous threat, probably sooner than you think he is. Like, I think he gets really good by, before 20 minutes.
Okie dokie. Next up, let's talk about Talia, and we've got less damage on her Q, which is a shame because I gotta be honest, I think the form of Talia that exists right now is probably the strongest form she's ever been in, and definitely the easiest to play and understand and execute.
I don't see her often, but it really does seem like when I see a Talia, Talia, I think is Talia, so Talia. Whenever I see
tomato.
Talia is an Israeli name. I think Talia is
Dude, it's
African?
a fucking like fictional fantasy game. Say it however you want to say it, man.
All right. How do you want me to say it? Because both names are nice.
I've always called it Talia because I think when Freak did the Champion Spotlight, that's how he pronounced it.
Oh, I don't think that we like talking about David Freak Turley after the Doom Build ADC items.
Bro, he's just a mouthpiece. I bet he isn't even like responsible for that shit.
Oh, I don't know. I think he was. Anyway, yeah, like whenever I see Talia in my games, especially whenever I see her in the jungle, she seems to consistently like do really well. Like have a very good KDA and like really be a terror in fights. Like I find myself like getting surprised sometimes by being knocked into an E and just getting one shot by her.
Yep, her
So yeah,
combo
I agree.
is
She's
good.
actually been fairly strong. And this is a pretty light nerf. Granted, the every single hit of the Threaded Valley is being nerfed, but I think this is the base damage reduction on the first hit. So that's you're getting like 2 to 4 damage less, which is nothing. And then I think all the other hits only do like maybe like what 30% damage that the first one did.
You know, she's one of those champions that I'm slightly less or more ignorant about.
Yeah, so if I'm right about that, you're only getting like maybe like 8 less damage in the entire like Q combo at rank 1, and like 4 less damage at rank 5. And of course, this is the first thing that you're going to max most of the time. So it's really a pretty light nerf, and I don't know. I would like to see more Talia, not less, but I don't think this is unfair. She's still good.
Alright. I'm actually surprised this has taken as long as it has already. Oh, that was the last champion changed, apparently. Next up, we've got some item changes. Alright, here's something interesting. What do we see? We got more expensive... Oh no, less expensive Essence
Yeah, less
Reaver.
expensive Essence Reaver, which we were looking at the stats last time, and I thought this was going to be a really good item.
I don't remember what I said, but it was probably the opposite of what you said.
It usually is.
I think I said something about the way they changed it kind of made it pointless for the people
Yeah, I
who
think you
had
didn't
been
like that
buying
they
it.
took it away from being a Spellblade item.
That's right. That's right. The burst, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the whole point, yeah.
70 AD, 25 ability haste, and 25 crit is a really nice stat line. I think if they want to make this, if it's not serving as a real strong item right now, which I would be surprised if it isn't, but if it's not, I think that the way you make it better is by increasing the base mana restore on hit. You make it so that this is an item that you can build earlier if you're like a Sivir or something like that is running out of mana, and don't require having a lot of bonus AD before the mana regeneration becomes efficient. Because when you're in the late game, you don't need mana regeneration as much. I'm considering the unique Essence Drain to be mana regen. It's really the mid game that you long for it the most as an ADC, I feel like.
I don't see any reason why they couldn't have just gave it a second passive and kept the Spellblade, and they could have kept the entire stat line up.
I'd be okay with that.
It wasn't incompatible.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. That way you can get a little bit of extra damage off when you proc it. But yeah, I still think like the stat line to me looks like it's a really good item if it's a champ that you're ever running out of mana on.
Or you know what they could do, and this is very, very bold, because this is something they would do in like Dota 1 and 2.
You know what those beer commercials say? Fortune favors the bold.
Here we go. And I think this would raise a lot of eyebrows, because this is very bold. You drain the same amount of mana from someone else on hit that has mana.
I would not hate that. I think it would be cool to have a mana deprival tool in the game. You know, that would really be like being like a mesmer or like a disabler. You know, that you'd see in a lot of other like not necessarily MOBAs, but MMORPGs.
I don't think they'll ever do
it. Maybe they just think it would be too frustrating to players that are managing their mana quote unquote correctly.
Exactly, that's why they'll never do it.
Yeah, but as the type of champion that likes using like disabling tools like polymorphs and whatever to protect my teammates, I think it would be cool to be able to protect them by draining the enemy's mana. So I'd love to have like 2 items in the game that could do that. Maybe one is the Essence Reaver and the other is like a support item. And then you do the Doom build drain, the Doom drain build, where both the ADC and the support take the mana deprival item.
I think there used to be a champion in the game who used to be able to steal someone's mana. I can't remember who it was.
There was definitely the Restore with Soraka. Was there a steal?
Yeah, Soraka definitely could give you mana, but there was someone in the game who used to be able to steal someone's mana or just take little bits of their mana. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
It wasn't Kassadin. It's just W used to give him Armor Pen of all things. Pretty sure there used to be someone who could take like bits of your mana, like 10, 20, 30, something like that. Alright, next up we've got Immortal Shield Bow, which is getting a much more generous shield in the late game, and rightfully so.
Was it the old Wit's End? Was that it?
No, that always did kind of what it does.
Okay.
That always did the same thing.
Alright.
Alright, before I was rudely interrupted.
Very rudely. I'm such a rude dude.
We've got a big buff to Immortal Shield Bow, and this is definitely nice. I still think it doesn't compensate for the fact that this item no longer has any lifesteal. I feel like the fact that all this gives is attack damage and crit kind of feels like it's missing something. Like it needs a third stat. I don't even think it has to be lifesteal. It just, since the item's red, it seems like it should have lifesteal,
Yeah, in addition to the fact that this is almost 200, and I agree with you completely. This is an item that would definitely benefit from lifesteal. I always thought it would be cool if they just procced like 30% lifesteal only for like the 3 seconds that Lifeline was active.
That'd be cool too.
Yeah, but this is a huge buff to the item. In addition to the fact it's 200 extra at level 18, they also changed the formula. So it starts scaling up at level 9 instead of 12. So if you're buying this as a mid-game item, it's going to give you like 300 more value than it did before. This is a really big buff to an item that probably needed it. And 720 shield is pretty crazy for an ADC. That's like almost half their life bar.
Yeah, I'm surprised it just gives you that much when you first buy it.
Yeah.
You think of something like Barrier, I mean, if you like activated your Barrier at like level 6, what would it give you, like 200 or something?
Yeah, but in fairness, like if you buy this at level 6, you're missing out on an important stat for ADCs.
True.
But yeah, this would be like 2.5 barriers at level 6. You're not wrong about that.
Alright, next up we've got Infinity Edge, and I guess this is the bonus critical strike multiplier that's getting reduced for the upteenth time, so I don't even know what champions crit for anymore. It was 250, 225, 215. It was 175 last year, so I think that's still true, and then this will increase it to God knows what. I don't even know anymore.
And now it's 2.4 times the normal amount if you have Infinity Edge.
No, it's not 2.4.
Which I think Randuin's Omen. What does Randuin's Omen reduce it by? Like 30%?
It's not 2.4 because champs don't do double damage anymore when they crit.
Oh, it's 1.75 now, right?
Yeah, that's been true for like 2 years or something.
Yeah, no, I know. I just that slipped my mind though.
That's because it's stupid.
So yeah, an extra 40%. I think this is just adding 40 on top of the 175, so it becomes 215% of your regular amount. But I'm not sure. There might be some type of multiplicative effect.
No, I'm pretty sure it's
Either way, this is an 80 attack damage item. It's still a big old ball of stats, and you will do tons of damage. So, yeah.
And if you don't have lethal tempo, now you basically have to get this to increase your late game DPS. Whereas for years, this Infinity Edge has kind of been on the back burner in lieu of more exciting things.
Man, lethal tempo living rent free in your head, Chrissy.
Well, it's such a foolishly...
I know, it was a huge change.
Yeah. Foolish thing to just randomly get rid of.
Felt a little unnecessary to me, too.
But yeah, I imagine Infinity Edge would...
rune that, like, if everybody was using, you could adjust the numbers. It was a cool item. It was a cool rune.
Yeah, without lethal tempo, I don't see any reason why it would be too crazy to just go back to like season 2 or 3 where everyone would just get Infinity Edge as their like first item. I mean, if you have no bonus attack speed, you might as well get something that's going to give you the biggest power spike.
Here's why. Mostly because you're spending a lot of the gold on the critical strike damage multiplier, and if your crit strike chance is only 25%, you're not getting your money's worth.
That's true, but, you know, when you watch it go off...
I think it's a really good second or third item.
Personally, I'm always going to get like Bloodthirster first because I think the most sustain is the most valuable in the laning phase.
Yeah,
that's my personal preference.
Mm-hmm. And then you might want to go something like, depending on the type of champ you are, like Bork or Essence Reaver second.
Oh, this game just changes too much.
I could definitely see the case for some champs going IE second item. Absolutely. But I don't think anybody but the Trashua brothers would go first.
We'll see.
And even then, like, why not just take that Immortal Shield Bow now that it combines with the Wind Wall to give them like 14,000 bonus life?
True, but it doesn't reduce their cooldowns by anything because it doesn't give attack speed.
That is true. That is true.
Okay, next up we've got... Let's see something. Let's talk about Static Shiv. This has been changed every month for like 2 years or something, right? Let's talk about this.
Pretty much. We've seen this guy in the patch notes quite a lot.
Okay.
There's just big buffs across the board. Tell them about it, Chrissy.
Well, they buffed the price by $100.
Yep. $100 less.
Now you get 5 more attack damage, more attack speed. Now you get movement speed, and the
7%,
active
nothing to
effect
change that.
does more damage. The movement
More for the
speed
Doom
is
speed build
definitely
if you want.
nice.
Yeah. The only thing they didn't buff on this was the one thing that I thought was going to be really powerful, which is the, kind of like the almost Storm Surge-like effect when you take down an enemy champion and it hits everything else in the area. But yeah, they buffed the wave clear. They buffed the stats. They gave it movement speed. I'm repeating what you said now, but this is just like a huge set of buffs.
One thing I noticed, though,
this is maybe even beating out Immortal Shield Bow for the most buffed item on the patch.
maybe, but one thing Static Shift doesn't give you is Critical Strike, which is something you'd kind of like with something like this.
Sure, but there are a lot of items that give you that. Like, if you're looking for some wave clear, or, you think you can take advantage of the Electroshock, or you want to do the Doom speed build. This just
Yes,
seems really
but
good.
here's the thing. 99% of the people that are going to build Static Shiv are 80 carries, and it feels bad to build something that doesn't give you Critical Strike if you're an 80 carry.
Depending on the 80 carry you are, it could be, right? Like, I don't think Caitlyn would be too mad about having this.
Oh,
I don't think Tristana would be mad about having this.
Tristana, maybe. Caitlyn, you definitely want crit, because that's how her passive scales.
Sure, but think about how much burst damage you could do with something like this.
I really don't think the actual passive effect on this is really all that great, to be honest.
Okay.
Is it like an internal... How often can this thing trigger? Is it I forget how this thing works.
Which thing? The spark or the shock?
I don't know. These just go together.
Okay, the wave clear is the spark. That's every 3 seconds. And the shock is what you get for takedowns, and it looks like there's no cooldown on that, but you have to take down enemy champions.
Well, I suppose if you got this first, you'll be pushing waves like a king.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least for
still, I guess without the critical strike, maybe the Trashua brothers don't want this, but I could still see a bunch of mid laners using it. I could still see a lot of ADCs using it. My God, think about this on Sivir. She's clearing the wave in 1 second flat.
Yeah, that's pretty silly.
Yeah.
Alright, next up we've got the Collector with a rare nerf. No more... Maybe it always gave 12 and it only gave 15 for a few months. Something about 12 looks familiar.
I'd like any nerf to Collector. I'm very happy with this. This is just, I understand why they have the Collector in the game, for the sense that, an ADC can't afford to have kills stolen from them by their team. And therefore, this makes it easier for them to get the golds. But there's gotta be some better way to do that, right? Because it feels so fucking bad to die to this item.
The only bad thing about Collector is someone hasn't caught on to the fact that when you mouse over it, it doesn't tell you all of the amount of gold you gained just from Collector.
What do you mean? They add that 3 years after they add a rune?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you hover over it, it tells you how much extra gold you've gotten from taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Obama. I wish they'd remove that item from the game or rework it, but always happy to see any nerf to Collector or lethality.
How would you rework it?
I haven't thought of a really good way. I think maybe you could do something almost like a Pike passive, where if your teammate steals a kill from you that you attack when they were under 10%, you get a share of the gold.
But you still kill them yourself?
I don't think the execute is actually what we want from this item. It's the fact that the ADC needs to be able to get the gold without having your team steal it from them. So maybe if you damage an enemy below 10% and one of your teammates gets the kill, you get 100 extra gold, 150 extra gold, and maybe they get 50 less. I don't know.
This seems like the type of item I'd be complaining about, but having seen it in action for a number of years now, and having used it enough myself, I think as long as it never goes above 5%, I'm okay with it in the game.
I understand that it's a low amount, but sometimes like that's what I get spiked to, and then I can like save myself with like enchanter skills and get away. Sometimes I just do a really good job like getting away with really low health and a shield, and it feels so bad to
Well,
be about to pull that off, and they're like, nah.
what
nah.
if this is how they reworked it? Instead of it
Mhm.
just instantly killing you when you get to 5% health, it
Yeah.
places like some kind of debuff on you, and if you don't receive any kind of healing or shielding within, let's make it kind of strategic, let's say a 3-second window, then
Yeah.
it activates the 5% effect.
So that would be great for the execution. The problem with that is it gives your teammates 3 seconds to steal the kill from. So it kind of defeats the point of the item.
Alright. I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with it, but I get it.
Yeah, that is my problem, and I agree with you. It's a hard one to figure out a good rework for. It's doing what it's meant to do. It just does something else unintentional. Anyway, happy to see the nerf there. And we got one more item, right?
Not really. Let's just
You don't even want to talk about this deal?
let's just talk about some runes.
Alright.
Alright. We've got the most wildly insignificant buff in the patch right here. We got 3 more HP in the
At
late
level
game
18.
on Absorb
Yeah.
Life, and this will be the point in the game where you'll easily be able to confuse this with a champion's base health regen, making it
Yeah,
just about
basically.
inconsequential.
Let me just see if they changed the formula significantly. No, they didn't. I mean, it will do something at level 6, just not much. You're getting 1 more health for killing a unit at
Wow.
level 7. Like, yep.
If you were
This is
looking for this to
basically-
have
this
more...
is a laning-only item. Rune, yes.
Well, if you really wanted this level 16 power spike is when it starts getting better than it was before. They've heard your prayers.
Yeah, congratulations on a rejuve beat at level 16. Next.
And then next up we've got Cut Down, which I think lowers the threshold where you can start doing bonus damage. Personally,
nice.
I really liked the old version of Cut Down because I think it was way more useful.
Was that where it scaled with how much more health they had than you?
Yeah, and it was just on all the time.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't do a great job with the lethality runes rework there. That they used to be more interesting than they are. Anyway, that this is a not insignificant buff to that rune. I'll say that much.
What's your incentive to take a tank killing rune that doesn't help you kill the tank when they're half dead?
I really could not give you a good answer to that.
Yeah, well, neither can Freak.
I could not give you an answer to that. I feel like Coup de Grace is the better rune in most situations.
Well, now I'd have to agree because it's on all the time.
Uh-huh. Well, it's on when they're low.
Yeah.
Coup de Grace. It's like the inverse of Cut Down.
Alright.
I'd almost always rather have more damage when they're low than more damage when they're high.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
It's just-
Tell us all about this turret gold, man.
Alright, so for whatever stupid reason, they've been taking more and more gold out of the turret plates in the last year. Because turret plating was, I think, one of the best things they've ever done. And so now we get more gold for first turret. 300 gold is really significant because you already get like 300 local gold, I think, for making the turret fall in the first place. It's a big infusion if you can get first gold as a team, and especially if you can hand it off to one carry. I mean, it's like a quarter of an item just by itself. With that said, they also increased the outer turret damage reduction for the first 5 minutes. So that's when you're wailing on their turret, when you've pushed them out of lane in the first 5 minutes. It used to be you got half damage. Now it's 75% less damage, so you're only getting 25% of the damage that you would normally do to the turret for the first 5 minutes. That means that you're doing basically no damage to the turret, and if you push the enemy out of lane, just push the wave and then get a good back in or roam, because pecking the turret for 25% damage is completely meaningless, and the turret plates are barely worth anything anymore. You're going to need to knock down the whole turret to get a significant infusion of gold.
And all they need to do is make this change for every single turret in the game and have it last for the first hour of the game.
And the turrets might actually be able to hold their own for a little while?
I think that's the biggest problem in the game, is the turrets are too weak when they're by themselves.
Yeah, and one of the biggest problems also with that, and that makes them so weak, is the fact that there's all these like on-hit effects, like particularly like the Sheen items that proc on turrets, the hull breaker.
I feel like there'd be a lot less split pushing if it was very impractical and obvious that you were going to lose the game because your team got caught in a 4v5 where you were fruitlessly banging your head against a ridiculously durable turret,
That would be funny. I think what we both want is for all champions to actually have to stand there for a little while against the turret and not be able to two-shot it.
That'd be good too. Anything would be an improvement.
Yeah, like, it's fine that if, the other team gives you time with a turret that you can knock it down.
I think the game should be about team fighting. It shouldn't be about trying to figure out a way to not interact with other players.
Yeah, and I'm fine with there being some a lot of dueling in the late game too. But in order to take down the turrets, you should have to basically be willing to extend for a significant amount of time and give the other team a chance at their leisure to come gank you instead of having to send 3 people immediately, because otherwise the turret's down in 4 seconds.
In the first version of Dota, when it was a Warcraft 3 custom map, there was a game mode where you could pool your team's gold. Like everyone could choose to put X amount of their gold into like a joint team's treasury thing, and the person who was in the red or blue slot, this would be essentially the team captain for the bottom and the top team. They could use that gold to upgrade the turrets and the minions.
That's pretty cool.
And it would make it way harder to do whatever the infancy of split pushing was back then. And it would make your siege minions and your caster minions and your melee minions stronger. And I think you could also buy additional minions for the wave too. Like you could add a second or another melee or caster siege minion.
Well, that would just be giving the other team like free gold in a game like League. Dota you can kill your own minions, but yeah. I honestly think that sounds pretty cool. League has specifically shied away from that type of design mentality, getting rid of Banner, getting rid of Zeke's, getting rid of the promote summoner spell.
Well, those help you push turrets. I want something that helps turrets like be harder to push.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that like they seem to have said like we don't want the objective game, because both pushing turrets and protecting turrets is the objective game. We don't want that to be based on the amount of gold that you've put into it, which is interesting. I wouldn't mind if there were things like you just said. I think it would be cool if you could make your turrets a little bit hardier by spending gold as a team.
If you earn the gold, you should get to spend it on whatever you want. That's your right for earning it and doing good.
What if you could spend gold and change the map?
That's too stupid, so they'll probably do that next season.
All right, I'm here for it.
Come on, guys.
All right, well, we decided our living rift wasn't living enough, so now we're going to separate the living rifts from the dead ones.
You got to be like, you're going to argue with your team and come on, guys, delay your mythic or your first legendary items. We got to get.
I want more Honeyfern on the map.
We got to get that bridge put up that connects the Barren Pit with our side of the jungle.
I want my cannon from base.
Everyone puts in like up to 900 gold.
I want more walls. It would actually be like nifty in a way. I don't know if it would be practical, but to be able to like spend gold to kind of like distort the map to your team comp.
Oh boy, shit, that'd be stupid.
I agree, but I also think it would be fun. All right, is that all we got?
That's all we got.
What was that, like a 2-hour patch notes for like the world's smallest patch?
Yeah, we can talk about how Action doesn't get to be a scoundrel for as long in ARAM, though.
Do you want to do that?
Not really. I think he's a terrible champ.
Yeah, I don't either.
Alright, that does it for 14.11. We'll see you guys next time when they destroy the game in some other fashion.
Alright, I'm looking forward to the next Doom Build speed item. See you guys for 1412.